Hello, Goddess Nyx. Welcome to Uncensored. It's so nice to have you here. Okay, so before I get into your story, your background, I want to break the ice and ask, what is the kinkiest thing you've Googled this week?
Oh my gosh. This week in particular, I mean, I've been in kind of a homebody domestic mode. My roommates are moving out, so I think the freakiest shit I've been looking up is what is the right way to roll bubble wrap around something? Do you put it with the bubbles inside or outside?
What's the answer to that?
You put the bubbles inside.
Really?
Yeah, towards the object, yeah.
Interesting. I actually did not know that.
I didn't know that either, and my roommate asked after I had already bubble wrapped maybe like 20 of their things. And I was like, well, don't tell me now, because what if I did it all wrong? But I did it right, so
Okay.
it's fine.
Good to know. So for those of you who don't know Goddess Nyx, she is a LA-based dominatrix, and she has like such an interesting history. You grew up in the South, and you are also like queer. I would love to know like what that journey has been for you, like discovering your identity, discovering yourself, and then getting into the pro-dom scene.
Yeah, so I was born in Mississippi. Most of my family is from Alabama. I actually grew up in Ohio. I moved there when I was like 6, but I spent every summer, every holiday break, pretty regularly going back down south. So when I think about like my roots and my like culture and like what I feel connected to, it's like not Ohio, it's not the Midwest, it's like very southern. After I graduated from high school, all of my family, my mom and my dad, moved back down south, so everyone is back down there. So I was lucky enough to be in an environment that was pretty progressive ultimately in Ohio, so it didn't feel crazy. Like I didn't come out, like I don't have a coming out story. I just was like, yeah, obviously, like, girls are hot. Like, it's girls are hot, right? I remember being in college and like coming back to visit my dad, and we were at a restaurant, and I was like, do you think that girl is hitting on me? Like, do you think the waiter is hitting on me? Should I ask for her number? And he just like looked at me very blankly and went, are you gay? And I was like, how do you not know that? So it was just not really a big deal. My grandmother still asks me like, oh, do you still see your friend? You live with your friend?
Oh, it's cute.
And I'm like, it's my girlfriend who I'm in a relationship with. But she can construct her own world.
Yeah, I have a cousin who she definitely has a girlfriend, and they like live together. They, sleep together in the same room when they're with my grandparents. And my grandparents are always like, oh yeah, they're best friends.
They're best friends.
They're
They're best friends.
They're so close.
Yeah, it's amazing the power of like an older woman, especially, to just like pick whatever facts they want to listen to is like
Right.
really amazing, really incredible.
I love how it's like it's an international phenomenon.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah,
it's in
absolutely.
Taiwan or it's in Mississippi, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think you get to a certain age and you're just like, I'm not accepting any new information.
Yeah.
Like only information that fits my mold.
Right.
And anything else, we're just gonna discard that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pretend like that didn't happen.
What is Mississippi like? I literally don't know anyone from there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Notably, a lot of Mississippi is full of like clay. So like red dirt roads are very common, and like very like there's like I think about it in colors a lot. So the water is very swimmable. It's quite humid. But we would spend a lot of time in swimming holes and tubing down rivers and stuff like that. And like along the riverbanks, there's all these deposits of like blue, gray clay, and then like these red dirt roads and these like bright, vibrant, lush, green, overgrown forests of like all these different amalgamations of plants, native and not. It's gorgeous. And then some of the people are, less the type of people that I would want to hang out with. But I think that the South in general gets a bad rap for being like overly conservative. And obviously, it's a red state. There are a lot of conservatives. But there are also a lot of, liberal democratic people. There's a lot of like young people. There's a lot of people of color. There's a lot of queer people. Like there's a very big and diverse like culture that is outside of your typical like, that stereotype of the South. And there's like a lot of liberal rednecks, and I think we should be celebrating queer
like,
liberal
we
rednecks.
never hear about that side of the South, which is like really cool to hear about. Is there a kink scene there? Like what does that look like if there is one?
There is a kink scene. It is a little bit more like private and like a little bit more, I guess, underground is kind of a word that I would use, because there are laws and legislation that kind of prevents certain kinds of gatherings. I think it's in Mississippi. This is like, a lot of states have laws that are really outdated, but technically still laws, like that no one would ever apply. But I think it's like technically in Mississippi, if you are in a house and there's more than like, I forget the number. This also, I've never fact checked this. This is just what my mother told me, so this could actually not even be true, but I'm going to say it like it is. If you're in a house and there's more than, I think, 10 women in the house and they're all barefoot, it is legally considered a brothel.
Really? So the feet
according
is
to my mother.
the feet
Yeah,
is a
yeah, the
defining
feet. Yeah, the feet
factor.
is a defining factor. And there's like, Alabama and Mississippi both have laws on like what kind of sex toys you're allowed to import and things like that. So I haven't been to any kink events and parties in Alabama or Mississippi, but I have been to DomCon New Orleans, which is kind of right around the corner. Ultimately, all those places are a lot closer than people realize.
Yeah.
And that has a lot of fun and a lot of kink. But there's freaks everywhere. They're just hiding a little bit better.
Yeah, they're always like I find that the more conservative a state is, the more like intense the fetish is and like the weirder it kind of like
Yeah,
grows in the dark.
yeah, you gotta get freaky with it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like the resilience of the like human expression, like regardless of laws and rules and boundaries.
Absolutely. And there's a lot, I bet right now at this very moment, there's probably at least a dozen girls who are fucking their tractor handles right now as we speak.
Oh my God.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I love that. I also don't know what a tractor handle looks like.
Well, like, like it's like a gear shift,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit bigger because it's a tractor,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So
They
they've
like
got, tractors have
little-
got a lot of knobs and like, guys really like to see a girl in a big geared up tractor, switching all the dials,
that is
lubing up the gear shift,
Uh-huh.
sliding it inside. I don't know.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. I've never done it, but
I know what I'm Googling in terms of the kinkiest thing this week now.
and lots of like four-wheeling. So like we do like a lot of ATV riding. We would go mudding. So like after it rains, you like take your four-wheelers out with the specific intent to like get as muddy as possible, as dirty as possible. And like you can't tell me that's not freaky. Like you're going out there just getting head to toe slathered in mud, like a little bit tipsy with like your, young hormonal friends. Like, come on. It's freak shit.
I mean, that reminds me of like the wet and messy fetishes too.
Exactly.
I've developed a big thing for Nuru the last 6 months or so, and I would love to be in that amount of mud.
It's
with a bunch of women.
It's really
like,
fun.
in the moonlight.
Yeah, and you're like riding around on your ATVs.
Some drinks here and there.
A scene I've really wanted to do is I really want to get an ATV and harness on like a strap-on onto it and make someone like ride bitch behind me while I like ride on a bunch of like bumpy roads and
Wait,
like getting like fucked by the ATV.
Yeah.
I think it sounds pretty nice.
That's some like Mississippi representation.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And like
representation.
there's some good like off-road trails not too far from LA that I would probably go because I could drive there. It would be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But it's on my mind.
Yeah. Have you growing up then, sounds like you're very outdoorsy, and I know you're very outdoorsy now. Is that like where it stems from?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I love nature. I love getting dirty. I was raised to not be afraid of like working hard and like getting in there and like doing the shit. Literally sometimes when I was young, I had to muck out pig stalls and like, help with chickens and ducks and all of that. So I'm not afraid to like be dirty, I like collect bugs and like all kinds of shit like that. So it's just I'm not easily like squicked out, and I think that kind of helps in a job like this that has like just some gross stuff is gonna happen at some point, right? And like the better you can handle that, the easier it's gonna be for you.
Yeah, what is the like dirtiest like nastiest session that you've done where a lot of these skill sets came into place and you're like, I'm prepared for this right now?
I've done a lot of wet and messy stuff. I used to do a lot more splashing. I had a client who really liked me to put like all kinds of like food, like sweets, cherry pie filling and stuff like that in my pantyhose, and then I'd sit on his lap and like crush him with it. And that was really delightful.
Ooh.
It's a great litmus test for like how depraved someone is, when someone's like, oh, what's the kinkiest thing you've ever done? And I'm like, do you really want to know? Because sometimes when you ask someone that, you're like, what's the kinkiest thing you've ever done? And they're like, oh, anal. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell my story soon after.
Yeah, I think the first time I met you was in Columbus, Ohio for the Wicked Eden opening. Was that the first time I saw you?
Were you at DomCon New Orleans?
I was in New Orleans, but not for DomCon. I was in DomCon LA a few years ago.
Okay. We might have met there. Or I just it's so hard in this industry because I like develop rapport and like I see people online and we like interact with each other's stuff. So sometimes I'm like, I've known you for so long, and it's like we literally just met.
No, because I'm trying to think. I was like, is this actually the first time we've met? But in my memory, I'm like, there's no way I've known about you. I've like seen you around for so long.
Yeah, well, we definitely met at the grand opening for Wicked Eden.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, and I did that performance there, also kind of messy. Did you see that?
I did. It was one of my favorite performances of the night. Like, I still have it on my phone.
Oh,
yeah, I filmed it. I was like, yeah, this is inspiration for future whatever I do.
I love that. Yeah, I love blood, and it's like one of my favorite things, and you can't sell it anywhere. It's like a non-sellable thing. And so I do a lot of performances, and so I would say 9 times out of 10 I incorporate blood into my performances because I'm like, you can't tell me what to do on stage.
You went to college for arts, specifically photography, and you've done immersive like BDSM theater. And there's 2 that you mentioned specifically, right?
Yeah,
that you talked about.
Yeah, so it's my roommates actually who are moving this year. We lived together for 5 years. It's Mistress Wiley Wolf and Princess Raven Gray, and we worked together to do these like crazy. It's called Observation Room. Was the name of the like company, I guess, and They did one first. It was kind of like a test run, and then I came on to the production team, and we did the next 2. Absolutely insane productions. Like, truly still boggles my mind that we did this. The first one was a 1960s asylum-themed thing where, like, we had people literally go back in time as ghosts to this asylum. So we, like, transformed a dungeon space, like, completely into, like, period-appropriate furniture, and we had this entire, like, crazy plot line going on with like all of these different things happening simultaneously, and it was like sandbox style, so people could come in and explore however they wanted. There were puzzles for them to figure out, and like the plot progressed as they went through, and then culminated in this like crazy ritual ending, sacrifice, crucifixion sort of thing that happened.
I would love to hear more about what that plot is and then what that crucifixion was like.
Yeah.
What was that?
So basically the whole vibe was like, as the viewer, you are being invited by, so present day, you hear a radio transmission and this guy says, my aunt was the head of this Catholic asylum in the 1960s, and the asylum mysteriously closed under like circumstances that nobody knows, and none of these people were ever heard from again. And I have built a time machine so that I can go back and figure out what happened, and I want you to come with me to figure out what happened. And so you come back in, you're essentially a ghost, so none of the actors can see you. So, everyone is playing their roles and doing their scenes, and you're just kind of observing. But you can influence the environment a little bit. For that one, I actually was the head nun, which was a really fun role to play. And we were very serious, like very period appropriate. We're very serious about a theme. So like all my piercings were out. I had a long red wig. We had a very like accurate nun costume.
I appreciate the like attention to detail here.
Very, very serious about the details. And basically like there were our two main characters. So there was our model patient who had come in and was like, at first she was very unruly, but we had disciplined her thoroughly and we had taught her the word of God, and she was a very good, very like model patient. And so she was kind of my like little, lackey who would follow me around and like beg me to punish her if she had like fucked up, and like, she would help dole out punishments to the other patients and things like that. And while this is happening, we have orderlies running around with other patients and all these little subplots that are happening in small scenes and vignettes, and it's like a 2-story place, so some stuff is happening upstairs, some is downstairs. And then our other kind of main character is this girl who's been wrongfully imprisoned, right? Because it's a 1960s asylum. She's been imprisoned for hysteria, right? And she doesn't know why she's been locked up, and we say it's her father, but she knows her father loves her, like, and so she starts the night like locked up in this jail cell, and the attendees have the opportunity to free her. Once she gets freed, she then gets locked up in my closet, in my office, because we don't like that, and then the attendees have the opportunity to free her again. And the general vibe is like, my secret is that I'm gay, and I'm having a secret love affair with one of our nurses, and my star patient figures that out and feels super betrayed that I am like going against the word of God and going against everything. And since she's been taught that the holy book is so important and all of the words are so important, she like takes that as an opportunity to be like, oh, this entire facility needs a cleansing. And so she orchestrates basically a ritual to get everyone to come together, and basically sacrifices everyone, kills everyone, kills me. We have one of the patients as our Jesus figure who has like the crown of thorns that we put in, and we had a wooden cross made, like a huge wooden cross, and they get tied to it and then suspended up in the air while this like ritual like killing scene is happening.
Yeah.
We have like an altar and like all of this. I mean, the set deck was crazy. And then the audience has the opportunity to free the wrongfully imprisoned girl. And if they free her, it changes everything that happens in the asylum. And it's no longer a mystery. She gets out. She's able to tell her story. There's like a whole newspaper that comes out, like, and everyone gets to know. And if they didn't free her, then it would just be the same like mystery. The mystery would be unsolved.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And on both nights that we did it, they did free her. So I thought that was really
That's
nice.
a very nice audience.
That's a very nice.
We got to.
Yeah, well, she's begging you,
Yeah, after all that, the audience is like, let's get her out of here. Wait, I love this like immersive theater. Like, what's that production called again?
Observation room.
Is that still around?
Oh, well, unfortunately, my roommates, which are 2/3 of the production team, are moving, and they are moving to Toronto. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that anytime soon, but possible things on the horizon. I'm sure if you keep your eyes on their stuff, they'll get up to some stuff in Canada, and I'll do something here at some point, but probably not to the same scale. I mean, it was crazy, and then
That sounds like a whole.
and that one was even like somehow smaller. We did that, and we sat back and said, oh, that was a lot of fucking work. Like we got to really tone it down for the next one that we do. And then somehow the next one was longer, more expensive, more complicated, more logistically challenging, because we don't know how to do less. I've never known how to do less.
I mean, with that kind of like with your mind, how could you do less?
Right. More is more, and I'm a strong believer in that.
What was the second production then?
The second production was like sci-fi, like alien theme. So for that one, it was really good. So it was less open sandbox, so not like an open world to explore. It was a very directed sort of thing, and the vibe for that one was we had an online forum beforehand that people could participate in, optional of course, where it was these two characters who were discussing having made contact. First, it was called First Contact. They had made first contact with an alien species, and they were very excited to share that. One person who had actually made contact with the aliens, and then the other person who was kind of like a little bit suspicious, but ultimately like ran the forum and like big conspiracy theorist, like wanted to like, see what it was about. And so we had everyone meet up at a bar, and then we loaded them into vans, blindfolded them, and drove them to the back alley of this dungeon, led them upstairs, and like we had completely transformed the inside. There's like, the set deck was crazy for this one. Black tarping everywhere, tubes like coming in and out, these like fleshy masses all over the place. And they like enter and they're like led through this like story and this experience where the aliens are real and they are there and they're very sexy. And basically what the aliens want is what they have been doing for the whole time of their species, which is using their scientific technology to interbreed their species with like other species to create a stronger and more robust species.
I already love where this is going.
But like
Wow.
effectively eliminating like, the human species in the process, right? And like taking us in as breeding stock. And so there's like all of these different vignettes that happen. The attendees have to hide in a room, like in a bed with like bloody stained sheets, where they just watched a video of someone getting like presumably murdered on the sheets in this like spooky blacklight science lab room. And then they get experimented on, and this very sexy, mysterious alien woman like does all these human experiments, like brushes your hair very like creepily, and like there's this electro thing we made everyone do together, and like lots of chanting. People love to chant. People really love to chant. And then, this kind of, the culmination of this ends in this insane, like, medical breeding CNC scene where it's like we have a bottom strapped to a gurney, and they're doing this entire like breeding thing, and they give birth to these like little grubs. And then she talks about like the alien like talks about like the life cycle of the grubs, and like we had a tub with like two kind of fully grown grubs, which were like people in nylon sacks covered in like green J-lube basically, and they're like sliming around together in this like clawfoot tub. It was
that little sack.
It was so fun. And then there's like a whole second plot line where you have to help that person escape, the like person who is the breeding stock. You have to like help them escape and then help everyone else escape, and you like end up running out like while that original person like murders themselves and like tells you all to leave so that you can save yourself. And like yeah, I mean it was so much detail and like not convoluted, but like very very intense storyline. I could probably talk about it for hours, but like I think that kind of drives the basic point across.
I would love to hear about it for hours. How long does it take to set something like that up for like 2 nights, right?
So that production, so the Alien one, First Contact, we ran that for 2 weeks. And we did 2 to 3 shows a day, Thursday through Sunday, I think, for the 2 weeks. So we had 2 bottoms and we alternated them out because it was a really heavy scene. It was like heavy impact, fisting, like, very intense psychological and physical stuff. So we alternated our bottoms. And we worked on off-site, so at our house. We did build and prep and design for probably about 6 months or so, and then the actual on-site setup we did in about a week, and then we had the 2-week production.
Wow.
So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, running that for 2 weeks is like, that's intense.
That was a choice that we made for sure, yeah. But turns out it's really fucking expensive to do a show of that caliber, and so we needed more runtime, both so that people could see it and also so that we could try and recoup some of our funds.
Yeah. How expensive was it to make something like that happen?
I think that First Contact cost probably somewhere in the vein of like $20,000 to $30,000 to put on.
Yeah.
But we also paid all of our performers like really well. We had like, I think 7 or 8 main performers in the show, and they all got paid the same amount, which was like a pretty like good
We
amount
love
of
that.
money.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
because we're not asking you to do all of that shit for free, you know, or for pennies. Like these are, and all the people that we have are like sex workers or sex work adjacent, and like you know, I'm paying the host for their time.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, but what's crazy is like I was kind of like the set design lead, and like I built a lot of the stuff there, and so like between me and the other people who helped out on building stuff, and we went to a lot of estate sales and like acquired things from like Facebook Marketplace for free and stuff. We actually did all of the set deck for less than the cost of renting the 2 vans for 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
I do love the idea of like transporting the audience from one location to other. Like
We
that
were
really adds to
dead
it.
set on that. We were like, we have to do that. Turns out it's really logistically complicated because we wanted to rent one like 15-person passenger van in the beautiful state of California. You need a commercial driver's license if you want to drive a van that is supposed to sit more than 12 people.
Really?
So we couldn't do it unless we paid for someone to get a CDL, which would have cost the same as just renting 2. So we rented 2 like Toyota Siennas or whatever, like fucking minivans, which ended up like working out well because we had the 2 you know, main characters that had the 2 different car rides, and we tried to split friend groups up and stuff like that. So it was like I think it worked ultimately, but yeah, definitely a lot of, it's interesting all the intricacies that you run into when you do something like that.
What's like the most surprising complication around putting on a show like that a normal person wouldn't expect?
Well, actually, it's trying to figure out and gauge the audience's reactions and, you know, the way that they interact. So one of the main story plot points was like after this crazy breeding scene happened, you had to like go into the other room to like, you know, talk with the alien mommy about her like breeding cycle and all of that. And the victim, the like person on the gurney, grabbed 2 people and was like, please, like, stay with me, help me get out. And those people needed to help them get out because then that progressed the plot. And if the person stayed in the gurney, then the plot couldn't go on. And on more than one occasion, people were like, no, I'm not fucking helping you. And they went and like followed the alien because they're like, I like the hot alien mommy. Like, I'm not helping you. You're fucked, you know? And like, it was hard to, in our heads, we were like, surely of 2 people, like someone's going to help them. Like, I would help them. I was amazed by how many people like didn't. And so we had to kind of like workshop and like between like the directors and the actors kind of figure out like a way to like improvise what to do if we like picked people who wouldn't help. Because otherwise the story couldn't go on because that person was the person who like freed everyone ultimately.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of like trying to predict what an audience of people, especially an audience of mixed people, some of them were kinky, some of them weren't, some of them were theater people, some of them weren't, some of them were new to immersive theater. So it was like hard to imagine and predict all of the possible outcomes and set up like, you know, fail safes for those situations.
Yeah, you guys were like, we have to make alien mommy like 10% less hot.
Yeah, she's too compelling.
Yeah.
Like it was
we gotta
crazy.
make her less hot in order for people to want to save this poor person on the gurney.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like, wow. We were like, kind of foolish of us to underestimate how much people would be so fucking alien pilled, but they were like, yeah, I'll do whatever. Like, I'm not saving you. I wish I could be you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, it's like, can we get on the gurney somehow?
Like, we'll trade. We can trade.
The alien mom can do whatever she wants to me.
Yeah, exactly. So but delightful because I mean that's also part of it, and like, it creates another like subset of beautiful things like the chanting. You know, we didn't expect people to get so into like the chanting that they were doing, and like we had this phrase which was like trust the cycle, which was like kind of a flippant thing that like Wiley, who's our writer, had just kind of like added in and was like, this is like a fun thing, but people latched onto it and it became this whole thing. And so we would be the producers were just behind like a black tarp basically in the back, and we had cameras so that we could watch everything, but the cameras didn't have audio, so we could just hear like whatever was happening in the next room. And it's amazing to just be like sitting there and just hear a group of like 10 people and they're all like, trust the cycle, trust the cycle, trust the cycle. And we're like, okay, guys, like, hell yeah.
They loved
They
it.
loved it. People love like a cult mentality, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like chanting is so like primal, right? We like
Yeah.
have been doing this for all of history since language has been invented.
Yeah.
They were really
Love it.
tapping into that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Yeah, it's
God.
like you really get such a like glimpse into the human mind. It's crazy.
Yeah, oh my, I think it'll be really fun to do a cult one if there's ever an immersive theater that you're going to be putting on
Yeah,
again.
yeah, there's a lot. I have like really a lot of ideas sort of percolating around in my mind. Um, Lots of fun things. So many possibilities.
Yeah, I think the intersection of like the kink BDSM space and the art space is such a like natural like wedding between worlds, and so many of the sex work friends I know are always like doing like weird, like art projects on the side.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've heard of one to this scale that's like you're just doing it for fun with your friends.
Yeah.
Like there was no like profits incentive
Yeah, like,
or it was just
we're
for the
like,
community.
ideally we would make money off of it, but if we didn't, we'd do it anyway. Like,
Yeah.
it was really like amazing. And, we all have like theater backgrounds, the three of us, and like, um, there's a ton of immersive theater stuff that exists right now, and especially around like Halloween and things like that. But even outside of that, lots and lots of really amazing immersive theater productions that are happening. But no one's really doing it like this. No one's like, there's no live sex. There's no like live BDSM. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I feel like we were, to my knowledge, the first to really do something to that scale in that way,
Yeah.
which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, I think it really is.
There are some extreme, like, haunts and extreme immersive experiences. There's someone in around the LA area who does like immersive theater, small scale productions, and I think he called it the Zodiac Cycle. And he does like all these different kind of zodiac themed things, and he'll do pretty intense stuff. I think they'll like tase you and throw cold water and like dirt on you and like um, suffocate you. There's the 17th Door in LA. I forget who produces that, but they like put you in like a basically like vac bed wall thing where you can't breathe for like a minute, and it's
Yeah,
like very
sounds
scary.
comfy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like if you want that kind of intense like in-person gripping kind of thrilling experience, like there are companies and people who are doing it like safely and reasonably and with a lot of safeguards in place.
Right.
But definitely not Macamia Manor.
Yeah, that one's insane. I find that like oftentimes sessions can feel like immersive theater.
Oh yeah,
Especially when the sub is looking for a very specific emotional experience, right? And that's
definitely.
why we get paid the things that we get paid, because they oftentimes sometimes it can be really high fantasy. I remember I once had a session with a sub and he wanted to do a role play where like I'm a doctor but I'm doing a trial on like college students, and they get a gift card at the end, and it's I have to put him in bondage, and it's he has to try different aphrodisiacs and like see what works, and it ends in a culmination between like me and another doctor in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just like imagine how elaborate and fun your sessions are if like this is what you're doing as a project on the side. Is there a like role play session or a session that comes to mind where you really brought the sub into a moment or a scene or experience that like will never be able to be replicated?
I've had lots of like little vignettes. I will say like typically most of my more crazy like psychological role play stuff has been um like personal scenes that I've done. I think a lot of people who book sessions, they say role play, but they mean like you're my teacher and I'm a bad student and you spank me. And
Lack
I'm
of
like,
imagination,
yeah,
right?
and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like I want to go way deeper than that.
Yeah.
I want to go way harder than that. So I have a lot of things that I've kind of mulled over in my mind, but haven't been able to like come to
Mhm.
fruition. I really want to do like a full weekend long like immersive kidnapping experience, and like I really love like that feeling of whiplash. So like I
Mhm.
love being very like soft and sensual and like, gooey and sweet, and like, I'm like, "Oh, do you want to come and put like your hand on my thigh?" And then as soon as you touch me, I'm like, "Why the fuck are you touching me? Why would you ever put your dirty little hands on me?" And playing with that like back and forth, and like that, just sweet, sadistic, fucked up kidnapper kind of vibe. Really, it
Mhm.
really excites me. I would love to do something very intense like that.
Yeah, there's a farm in upstate New York owned by Dia Dynasty, Fendong
Mhm.
Farm. That comes to mind when
Yeah.
they're talking about like immersive. I mean, at that point, it's not theater anymore. Like this is her life now. Like at
Yeah.
a certain point, like her fantasy is now reality where there's stables and it's a fully sub like ran farm. But I think she also is open for I think potentially being rented out for like unique, interesting scenes for the
Yeah.
community.
Ideally, like someone would just come to me and say, like, I'm giving you, like, here are the parameters, right? Here are my limits, and like go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love that because I could just like,
We're picturing it here,
yeah,
and
I
we
could
could
do some
whack
crazy shit.
crazy, interesting session ideas. Nix
Mm-hmm.
is the one for you.
Mm-hmm. I could go like, my brain, it's just overflowing with like so many delightful fucked up things that I would just really love to do.
Do you have any outside of the kidnapping ones? Like, what's the another sort of fantasy that you're super excited about? You want to like pitch into the universe right now?
Oh gosh. I really love, it's very, very hard for me to pick just one. Um, but I'd really love to do like more like medical experimentation, like kind of vibes. But I also like this is, I'm gonna just put my like weirdest one out there because I feel like it paints a very solid picture. Um, I really want to do like a fucked up like office based kind of role play where like I'm your boss and you have to come into work, but like every time you come into work, like the situation gets more and more fucked up in like a really ridiculous way. But I am like behaving as if everything is really normal and like we're operating under normal office standards and protocol. But I want to fuck with like the lighting and like your mind and your environment and like
Mm-hmm.
making you like in more restrictive bondage, or like somehow making a room like appear smaller, or like
Mm.
setting the cubicle space up in like a very weird kind of dank, dingy sort of place. And like I love the like sterility of like that medical field, and I feel like a lot of like office stuff also has that same like sterility. It's also very on my mind. Have you seen Severance?
Oh my gosh, I've been rewatching it to prepare for season two.
I just rewatched
I
season
love
1,
that show.
and
That's
so that's
my
like
favorite show of
so on my
the last
mind.
2 years. Yeah.
So you know the like waffle party scene?
Yes.
That to a T is observation room. Like
Uh-huh.
that's what we're doing. Like that's the kind of like weird emotional shit that we're putting you through. Or like, come have a waffle party, sit down in this room, and it's just you in this room eating a waffle, and then really fucking weird shit is happening. Put on this mask and be quiet.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's really like a vibe that we were all watching that together the other night. We were like, that's us. That's like literally.
I'm so excited for season 2.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of offices too, like the Severance liminal space is, I would love to do sessions in something like that, where they have weird little corners. There's suddenly, I mean, spoiler alert for people, but like you turn the corner and it's like, why are there goats here?
Exactly. Or like, we're walking together down this long white hallway, and then you turn around and, oh my God, I'm gone. I'm gone. You're alone now. You're all alone now. But maybe you can hear my voice through an intercom somewhere.
Or someone
Find
who
it.
looks like you, but it's like a little bit off, coming from
Yeah.
the corner, and like
Exactly.
continues like
Someone with
walking
just
around.
like a silicone mask of my face, and then
Yeah.
suddenly there's like 10 of them with a silicone mask of my face. Like,
Oh,
I just want to fuck people's minds up.
that's so much fun. I absolutely need to go to like a theater show with you now.
Yes, we should. Come back to LA around Halloween, and there's like Rife. If they do the Willows again, highly recommend the Willows. I think it's my favorite immersive experience that I've done yet.
Yeah. Is this scary? The Willis?
It's a little scary.
Okay. This is my one weakness. I'm actually terrified of like horror.
Oh, Well,
But
it's
I will
like
if I can go through it.
it's like a little scary, and it also like it's hard to say because it depends on your situation.
Yeah.
But a lot of immersive theater kind of operates under like a like they kind of ask. It's like, you know, like because you will get separated from the group.
Yeah.
But if you're
Scary.
like, no, I really can't do that,
Uh-huh.
usually they'll pick someone else,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? But it's also like it's kind of fun to be a little scared, like locked in a closet
Yeah,
for a little
I
bit.
consider myself like a horror top, not a horror bottom.
Yeah.
Like giving it, creating the environment, sure.
Mhm.
Receiving it, I'm a little like baby.
Yeah, it is like it's very fun, and like the Willows, like the whole set is like you're at a dinner party at this like very nice mansion in LA, and so it's like got spooky family dinner vibes to
Yeah.
it, and that kind of like devolves through the night. And there's definitely some like scary moments and a couple like jump scare things, but it's not like the scariest like haunted like immersive experience thing I've ever been to.
Okay, cool. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so pretty
The
fun.
last time I went to like a haunted mansion thing, I literally my brain blinked out. Like
You don't remember
I
it?
remember walking in and then there was like a devil character and he breathed on me and all I remember is like, oh wow, his breath doesn't smell like anything. And then I just remember walking out.
Oh.
My brain just like blinked out half of it. There's like vague
beautiful.
memories of like clowns and like that was kind of cool. But yeah, it just like disappeared from my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you would like the Willows, and when I went, like, I was never alone. My roommate did get locked in a closet and was alone for a period of time, but like I was never alone, so I always had at least like someone to kind of like feel that sense of camaraderie with.
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice. I thought it was fun. But I like to be a little scared sometimes.
Love that. Do you have a favorite horror movie?
I don't watch like a ton of movies, but when it comes to horror, I really historically enjoyed the like Rob Zombie movies, so like Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, because they're like so grotesque and so sexy in a way that is like really like fun and exciting. I also really like the Saw movies because like that's like I would do a Saw scene.
Yeah.
Like
I do like Saw.
yeah.
Okay, so by horror that I can't handle things that don't follow like the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
But torture, totally fine.
Yeah,
Walk in the
I
park,
love
yeah.
I love that. I would also love to do a Saw scene. Like if someone was like create an elaborate contraption for me to be like stuck into and then like a puzzle, I would adore that. Like you just like wake up in a room and there's like a tape recorder with my voice and it's like giving you very vague and menacing instructions on how to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like that.
Yeah, lots of ways to fuck with them.
Lots of ways to fuck with them. It's great. And I'm just there on the other side of like the one-way mirror, just like laughing at you.
Like see how they dance and all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. My mind races with possibility and I love seeing that. And like I really love things that have like intricate like because I love doing like set design and interior decorating and like I love building things. And so I love to watch the Saw movies and then watch like the behind the scenes for the Saw movies and be like, oh my god, how did they do that? Like I want to do that. I'm gonna make a needle pit or whatever the fuck. Like,
do you have a like a wood shop or do you have a space where you're making a lot of things at your own place?
yeah, I have a pretty sizable house with like a very large backyard and I have a garage as well, 2-car garage that I don't park a car in. And so the garage is generally like my sewing studio and like crafting, jewelry crafting, things like that. And then I'll do my woodworking kind of on the side of the house or in the backyard. It's like LA, so the weather is usually permissible to do stuff. So pretty chill. But yeah, I own a lot of saws and not enough. I could have another saw. I really want a table saw. I have like a rotary saw, I have a jigsaw. I have like too many drills actually, probably more drills than a person really needs. And yeah, I love creating stuff, crafting anything really.
How do you do it with your nails? Because I can barely do bondage when my nails are like longer than this.
I just have a lot of practice. And I do my own nails, so like the sticks are a little bit
They look so good.
Thank you. This is my first time doing the 3D gel, which I really like. So the stakes are a little bit lower. If I like break a nail, I'll just fix it.
Yeah.
I don't have to like go all the way to the nail salon or anything like that. But I've had pretty long nails for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years at this point, pretty consistently. So I can do almost anything with my nails except like open a can of soda.
Yeah, that's I haven't felt the tips of my fingers in so long.
But that's what boys are for.
And that is what boys are for.
But
yeah.
I do love, I could also do it myself, but I love to be like, I can't do this. Can you do this for me? I can't do this. I couldn't possibly do it with my nails this long. I'm just not capable. So you have to do it for me. And then pick up like a much more complicated tool and like use it on them.
Do you guys have any favorite subs right now?
Yeah, I do. Well, I have my personal pet who has been serving me for I think like 6 months now. This is his chastity key.
So cute.
Yeah, and he's real sweet. We do mostly domestic service stuff, so he comes over and cleans the house once or twice or 3 times a week. He helped me prep all of my shit for Burning Man and like other stuff like that, and he'll clean up after parties and stuff like that. So he's definitely at the top of my list. And then I have this very cutie little athletic fisting bottom that's been seeing me recently. That's just been like, he's just real sweet. Like he's not like super subby or anything like that, but he's like got a big slutty hole. And like last time we played, I like fisted him until he pissed himself, which I thought was delightful and very sexy.
Yes, it is.
So
It's
so
nice and messy. He can't control his body from how good it feels.
yeah, so I love that. And then I have a lot of play relationships with a ton of my friends that are in LA and also around the country. And
Whenever there's like a new sub, I'm always like, how about like a little scratches here and there? Like, well, is that a limit? I always like try to see if they're into a degree of pain. It's just so hard for me to get into something without like a little bit of like aggression.
yeah, somebody filled out my booking form once and it was like on the hard limit section, they were like, no blood and nothing gay. And I was like, okay, I feel like you're not reading my profile because that's like my two main things. Like, I like blood and making you do gay shit. Like, I like, no. What are we gonna do? Just sit down and talk to each other? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, reach out to another person.
Yeah, it's like, I just can't. That's a lot of my brand. It's like blood and gay stuff.
Yeah. Were there any like weird hard limits you've ever come across before?
Oh, someone once was like, don't make me dance.
I had that.
It's like,
Yes, I also had.
I was like, well, now I
I
want to. Like,
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought to, but now I really want to fucking see you dance.
Why can't you loosen up?
Like, dance a
I
little
wonder if
bit.
it's the same person, or if it's like a trend among certain men.
Yeah, I was like, okay, wasn't thinking about it, but now I am. Like, fuck.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a limit I would kind of like try to negotiate.
Like, well, I'm at least gonna ask you about it. I think I asked him about it, and he said like a dom had made him do it like before, and he just like didn't like it, and I was like, that's kind of a lame answer.
That's too bad. Yeah.
I'm never gonna like make you do something that you don't inherently like agree to do, but like I might tell you that your hard limit is stupid and that I think it's a little dumb.
Yeah, that one's a little.
That's freedom of speech, right? I'm allowed to have whatever opinion. I'm not gonna make you fucking dance if that would really just like psychologically ruin you, but I am gonna make fun of you for the fact that it's so intense for you, right?
Yeah, like his worst nightmare is you bringing him to a club.
Yeah.
Like trying to move to the beach.
Oh no, oh god, jeez. And I always love, like, I think it's a very common one, but there's like a lot of very heavy masochists who are like, no tickling. Like, no tickling. Like, you could literally like whip me 500 times in a row, break skin every time, but like, don't tickle me.
Like no laughter in my body. Only crying and whining and moaning, but don't make me laugh.
Fun, and I think that's very common. I see that a lot.
Yeah, I think for tickling, I get it's really weird. I only get tickling session requests in Chicago.
Really?
There's a big tickle community there.
Okay,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
And apparently there's a whole documentary about like the Chicago tickling scene because it's so
Okay.
concentrated. I don't know, it's like the
I
Midwest
love
air
a
or
tickling
something.
session. I think it's so fun.
Yeah, it's like hilarious.
Yeah, it's so fun. We both just like we're laughing, we're giggling, we're having a great time. Like, I feed so much off the energy in a scene. And when the bottom is just like writhing around laughing and like, tee-hee and all this delight, I'm just like, yes, we are having fun.
It is happening here. Okay, this is gonna be kind of a hard pivot, but you mentioned way earlier that you collect like bones and bugs, and you have like little collections and knickknacks. I would love to know like when did that start for you and how big is your collection now?
Um, so I have been collecting dead things since I was like quite young, especially like having um grown up around so much Southern culture. It's like it was very normalized from a young age to just be around taxidermy and animals. Like I I never considered it being weird until I was like much older and I would see people like, eat at like a Outback Steakhouse or something have taxidermy on the walls. People are like, "Whoa, is that like a dead like cow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like your grandpa doesn't have a deer up in the living
There's
room."
also
Like,
one on your plate too.
yeah,
That's
the
what
way
it
it's
looks
just
like.
like I don't know, it's just regular. And like I knew a lot of people who like would hunt and like, if you live in the country, like deer shed their antlers, so, like you're gonna find antlers around, you're gonna find skulls around and bones around. Um, so I've collected from a pretty young age. My collection isn't super huge right now because when I did move to California initially, I couldn't take a lot of stuff with me, so I have like a big box of like uh antler skulls and or like antlers and like deer skulls and some pelts and stuff at my mom's house in Alabama. But I am growing the collection steadily. I collect like bugs generally like I try and be very mindful about like the ethics of collecting dead things and oddities. So I am not interested in collecting anything that was like killed for the purpose of collecting.
Mhm.
But things die, and I think if things die, then like I can have them if they're dead, and I feel like if I'm caring for them and respecting them, then that's fine. So there's like a lot of dead bugs. Bugs will just die, and then you can just have those bugs. It's you can just
Mhm.
pick them up and put them in a little jar, and then they're yours actually. So
Do you categorize them by like all the same bugs in the same jar, or is it like on a
so
display?
so I want to start getting into pinning. So like the way that you do it is like the bugs die and they like dry out, and then you can rehydrate them, and like pin them into place, and then they'll dry in place. And I want to start doing that, but most of them I have in little like I have a plastic container that's like divided, and then yeah, they are categorized. So I have like a section of bees, you have a section of beetles, a section of butterflies. The butterflies are very fragile, so I sometimes put them in a different container. I have a praying mantis. And then of course I've had people I always generally accept gifts of dead things, so have people who give me like pinned butterflies and praying mantis and like things like that that I have just up around the house. And I like to collect things like that. Currently my favorite thing that I have is I have a globe that's about this big that sits on this ornate metal base, and it has a preserved ball python in it. And it's just like the entire ball python is just wrapped up in the globe. It takes up like most of the globe. It's gorgeous. I'm super obsessed with it. This very wonderful friend of mine, submissive, and just generally beautiful person gave that to me for I think Christmas or my birthday last year after I'd been pining over it for like years, and I was so thrilled, like
That's
an
so
incredible
sweet.
gift. And I have it. I call it my snorb, my snake orb, and I have it up right under my TV in my living room, just
Oh
like
my gosh,
front and center.
that's such a thoughtful gift.
So sweet.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
What attracts you to collecting? Like, what's the emotion it elicits for you?
I think it's really, like, beautiful, and I think it's important to remember that, like, we're just, like, flesh and bone, and, like, I think that having a grasp on your own mortality and the mortality of the things around you and remembering that, like, we are all so temporal and we're always kind of in between something,
Mhm.
and I think that that's really beautiful, and I think the insides are really pretty. I think skulls are really beautiful and bones are really beautiful, and, like, it has this essence of life and this like spirit of like existence in the world, and like it really grounds me and reminds me like that, like, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that too is me. Like I'm just like bones under here, and like one day I will be gone and just bones
Mhm.
ultimately. And I think that that's really like beautiful, and there's a yeah, like a morbid curiosity too of just knowing like how does it work? What is it like? What does it look like?
Mhm.
I think it's really cool. There's like this process called diaphanization, where basically like they take you can do it to anything, um, but you take a full specimen, and I forget what they soak it in, but they soak it in something that basically turns all of the bones, cartilage, and muscle translucent, um, and like kind of rubbery. And then they inject dye into this specific thing. So usually they'll do like the bones will be blue and the veins will be like pink, and then like the tendons and muscles will be like a green color, and then the rest of it is this translucent thing. And so you can see like this animal, this like creature that you can now see like where all of its little bones are, and the way that it's like veins connect in and all of its little bits and pieces, and you're just like, we're just like little meat sack puppet things, and we're just held together by like tension and prayer, right? And like I think that's really fun, and I love the concept of like unraveling, right? And like I think you can best unravel something if you know how it was first put together,
Mhm. Mhm.
um and that applies to a lot of things, I think.
Yeah. I think that like American death rituals are very like corporatized in some ways.
Mhm.
And I read somewhere where like after the American Civil War, like that's when the act of, caring for the dead in your own home and in your own community became like outsourced to the state, where now these like strangers come in and they take this thing outside away from your home, and then they, cremate it, or they preserve it, or, do all of that. I think there's something lost about not having the intimacy
Mhm.
with, you know, seeing and like caring and being able to like witness like this is what it looks like at the end.
Yeah. I think like yeah, Americans especially like are very opposed to like really confronting death and mortality in kind of any way. And I think that's evident in like our death rituals and in the way that we do funerals and stuff, and also in the way that we like consume food products and like animal products, because we're like, oh, that's not a pig, that's pork,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a cow, that's beef. And people get really weird about like seeing, they're like, oh, I could never like, I could never like kill an animal on my own, or like I could never like look at an animal as it was like being killed. And it's like, well, I think if you can't do that, you shouldn't eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think you need to like really have some reverence and some respect for like the fact that you're like consuming life, and like I don't think that that's an inherently bad thing, but I think like if you just pretend like that's not happening, it kind of puts you in this like weird space where you're not thinking about death. Death is inevitable. Like we're all gonna die. Like, and that's okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be so scary or like
Mm-hmm.
taboo or dark. Like it's fine. And yeah, I know there's a lot of um countries and cultures and stuff where it's common practice to keep corpses around like in the home for like grieving periods,
Mm-hmm.
before they're like taken away or like laid to rest or anything like that. And I
Right.
think that's like beautiful. I think it makes more sense to me to be in tune with that and in touch
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I wonder if it's like a Dom thing to like wrestle with some of these ideas, and
Yeah.
because we're around like flesh so often, and we're like, molding flesh and like hurting flesh and also like putting flesh together,
Mhm.
like that kind of like intimacy about that. Maybe like that's what creates a lot of these thoughts, or it's like a personality trait among among a lot of us. But yeah, I think the funeral rites for in this country specifically, where yeah, someone takes the body away and then they try to preserve it to make it look as lifelike as possible
Mhm.
for as long as possible, and then you put them in like this sealed, highly expensive box and then you bury it really, really deep underground so that no one has to witness rot, no one has to witness decomposition, and no one has to like really think about them is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's very weird. I've always been like anti-casket, as I'm like, I don't want to rot in a box. Like it just feels like, I don't know, it feel like the ending of a cycle where it's like I want to like go back into the earth, or like, or I would even be cremated and have that spread somewhere or something, and I don't really care that much, but like expensive box for me to like be in for the rest of eternity seems like the worst option out of all of the possible choices.
Yeah. Is there a death ritual that you really gravitate towards?
I think like I have like said many times, and to the chagrin of like my mother and also other people who have loved me, is I was like, I don't care what you do with my body, and like I really don't, like I don't care. For a while I was like, donate my body to science, but then I realized that a lot of the body donation things that people do are kind of to very evil companies that are like using it for kind of evil things, and I was like, I think I'd rather be in a ditch. Like I don't care, like I don't know, make a tree or something, dig a hole, but there's like a lot of laws you're like not allowed to.
Surprising amounts.
Like you can't do it. Even you're not even supposed to do it with like animals and pets in some places. Which is insane, but all I know is that my family owns a lot of acreage, and if you think you're gonna tell me what we're doing in the middle of it, you're dead wrong. So I don't really care. But what I do know is that if people are gonna have a funeral for me, they better be fucking and they better be fucked up. Like, y'all better be partying. You can cry the whole time, but like, someone come and come and come and like do party. Like I love to party. Like I don't love a room full of sad people, so just somberly talking about their feelings is not my vibe. Like do something to my vibe to honor my spirit. Like have a party. Like give me one last like hurrah. Load my body up in a rocket and to the sky.